Tubs, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, you are listening to Fuck Fear with Christine Spratley, living like a head bitch in charge. We are on today, and I am really excited because we actually have a guest. I am so honored. We do have dogs in the studio, Joe's in the studio, and we also have someone else. She's not in the studio, but she is across the pond, and her name is Ria Peake.
Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley, living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
And Ria and I are, we met each other through a mutual women's group that we both attend. And I thought I'd bring, well, one, she's a head bitch in charge and she's a badass. And I've really gotten to know her. And two, I've just done a couple segments on health and our physical being as a woman and the accountability that we have to have towards ourselves of learning and understanding. And in this group that I'm in with Ria, all of a sudden I started going, oh, wow, she knows some shit. And she is actually the one that said, hey, why don't you read Your Brain on the Pill? And so I've had conversations, and she's been very integral in, hey, I've got questions, or hey, have you thought about this? And this is what I talk about when we talk about our tribe and who we let into our tribe and who sits with us is in the pantry. I've received stuffed ingredients in my pantry from Ria. And so that's why I wanted her on. And I'm so excited that she's on. So let me tell you a little bit about Ria. Ria rolls deep with degrees, okay? She's got a bachelor in biomedical science, a master's in biotechnology, a post-grad diploma in physician's associate studies, which is like the PA here. Is that okay? PA here, and you're currently working on your PhD in psychology. So that's, like I said, she's running deep. And then she's also, now you've also done research on cancer fighting, and drug-induced cell death and just all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it's really amazing. What I like about, in reading a little bit about your background, is that you approach it from a psychology standpoint, but then also just a strict biological standpoint, a biology standpoint, and your training. And that is one of the things that you and I have talked about how we, a lot of times as women, oh, it's psychology, it's all your therapy and it's all this, but we don't learn about the biology and what things are going on, that we can take care of all the psychology side of it and work through all of our demons. But there's stuff going on inside of our body that limit us or that give us abilities, and we just need to know that full side. And I really love that. And one little thing that I'm going to tell you about Ria, she's got a voice like Mary Poppins. Okay, seriously. And but don't be fooled, because I was having a really hard time recently, and this was kind of shortly after we met. And she didn't try to give me a pep talk. She didn't try to do anything. She sent me, because everyone knows I love music, and music helps me move through things. And she sent me Bad Things by, is it Wednesday
13?
And we're not going to play it.
Oh.
That is the ultimate. There's no box big enough. I mean, and then, you know, it's just really great to have you, Ria. So Ria, welcome to the podcast. Audience, welcome Ria with love and open arms. And if you don't like it, deal with it, because here she is.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I'm really hoping we can roll Wednesday 13 bad things at the end. Or people go listen to it. Go listen to it.
Go listen to it. And if you need to, please email me and I will send it to you. I've got it on my playlist. It's in all of my rotations. So it's one of those that you really, I think, we never say it out loud. But boy, we kind of
want to.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So the way this is going to work today is I sat down with Ria and I said, okay, what do we want to talk about? And she came up with 5 things that she wished she would have known about the biological side of being a woman. And we didn't discuss them. So I have not heard these things. And I'm really excited to hear them and then kind of go, oh, wow, what does that mean? So I'm going to kind of be experiencing some stuff. And we'll explore it. So, Ria, tell me about first, before we get into the 5 things, tell me a little bit about how I think you're a head bitch in charge. And I think you say fuck fear a lot in your life. And just whatever you want to share about what you think about that. And because water sees its own level, it really does. And so, what's your badassery? Like, what does being a head bitch in charge look like in your life?
Thank you. What came into my head then was that quote from the Amy Winehouse song where she goes, "What kind of fuckery is this?" Which is what I heard as you were saying that. Fuck fear. You kind of have to fuck fear or it fucks you, is what I've realized. It's going to be there no matter what. But I really came to a kind of reckoning with this about 7 years ago now, where I kind of was in a place where I had the stuff, I was the first in my family to go to uni, to get a degree. And, I had the marriage, I had a great job in inpatient psychiatry, and I was really sick all the time. I felt atrocious. I wasn't happy when I should have been, using air quotation marks there. And I kind of went like, wow, like, what am I missing here? There's got to be more here. And then I really had to open my eyes and go, what have I chosen ever in my life? What has been mine? Not that I picked up on what you should have or what I've been told I should be or what I should learn, who I should love, what I should look like, how I should show up in my life. It wasn't my life. It was somebody else's. And that's when I kind of went, well, this isn't a test run. This life's not a test run. What the fuck are you going to do? And then I started making choices. And that was harder. Oh my God, that was harder.
It's a hell of a lot harder to participate and to intentionally participate.
Yeah, to not be a victim of circumstance, but actually to make the choices and own the choices. So I started making some really hard choices. And I'm still making them today. But they're mine. I get to decide now what work I do, when, how I show up, if I want to show up. And yeah, it's a whole lot easier to know that at least if this all goes up the creek, I was going to say something worse.
That's okay. You can say something worse here. The title is Fuck Fear.
It's mine. Yeah, it's mine. And then, but with that, the fear is mine. And that's much less than holding a whole weight of other people's fear about what happens if you step out the box, because then they might have to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of,
It's amazing to me how taking that ownership really is more about, because my fear is really a lot smaller than everybody else's. But when I add my fear and their fear, and then it just kind of builds on each other, and then you become fearful of everything, and some of it's not yours, and you just are able to go, okay, I can deal with my shit. Like I can deal with, I'm scared, I'm nervous to change, I don't know, I have fear, uncertainty, doubt, I call it FUD. So with that, I am really curious to hear your idea around the 5 things and why you chose that, and just kind of what sort of pantry items we're going to put in the pantry today.
Yes, cool. I will add, in terms of the fear, for a while in my 20s, I worked in an inpatient unit, and part of that wing was women's only secure psychiatry unit. And that was a really scary eye-opener about what happens when you don't have autonomy. And that was a big turning point for me. Like, nothing separates me from those women at all, apart from circumstance and autonomy. And that's a luxury that I know that it's much harder to address in certain instances for some people to take ownership, but when you can, you got it. And on that note, a lot of that is what has inspired these 5 things. I wish I knew about women's health before I had to, because in women's health, we often find out after the fact, So yes.
It's kind of like dating sometimes. Like
when we were talking about it.
It's like, damn, I wish I would have known that shit up
Give
front.
me a preview already.
Yeah.
What am I signing up to?
It's funny. I'll digress and then I'll come back. But like, I heard this, and I if you're dating someone and they've ever been married before, you should go talk to their ex. And I was like, no way, they're crazy. It's like, yeah, they may be crazy, but there's always some truth in it. And it's just like, hey, oh yeah, okay. So the 5 things
So agree.
you wish you would have known before you needed to know them.
Yeah. So number 1, the menstrual cycle. It's not just about reproduction or sex or gynecology. It's about the whole body. Our period is not the cycle. The loss of blood is a symptom of the inner process. It's not the process itself. Does that make sense?
It does, but okay. My question is, what do we miss by not understanding that it's not the whole cycle?
Yeah. So obviously when you hear women talk about their periods, they might say, oh, I'm on my cycle. What they mean is they're bleeding. We're on our cycle 4 months, from day 1 to day 28, however long your cycle is. It's the bleeding is the outer sign. It's the symptom of what's going on internally. And it can tell you so much about what's going on internally. You've got more pain that month. You might have more prostaglandins because you're more stressed. Why? If you've got brain fog, what's going on with that? The cycle or hormones affect cognition. They affect our mood. They affect our digestion, our hearing.
Our hearing?
Our taste. Our hearing. Yeah. Our hearing's far more sensitive at certain points in the cycle than it is at others. And the reason I say this is obviously the bleeding is important. I mean, when we act like it's not, it's mad, like we're showing up to exams in school. And if you're bleeding at that time, you want to say, dude, you try taking this exam and coming out with the same results as you want whilst you're hemorrhaging. Come on, try me, because we're not the same. And I think when we think that men have a 24-hour hormonal cycle, we have a 28-day one. We're working with so much different furniture, but we're expecting our houses to look the same. We aren't. Society is. We're supposed to turn up as if we don't have different needs, different levels of energy, or different levels of being able to access different parts of our brain. At a certain point in the cycle, we're more able to access the executive function, which means we're going to be way more on it.
What is you say executive function? Because some of my listeners may not know what. Okay, again, this is a cycle. It's a 28-day cycle or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? It's 28-day typically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most commonly.
Yeah. And so when you say executive function, because I think this is really key for women in general. We show up thinking we're going to be able to show up. And my default was when I couldn't show up or when I had brain fog or when my executive function, and you can explain that in a bit, when it wasn't on target, I just assumed I was wrong. I just needed another app, or I needed to work-life balance or whatever. I need to get my shit together.
Exactly.
But it's it's our bodies going, hey, you ain't playing with a full, it isn't happening right now.
Yeah.
Right. So what is
Exactly.
executive function?
So executive function is a network in the brain that means where we access our higher functioning, analytical thinking, problem solving. Those days where you're just like, boom, 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 idea,
Fire
idea,
up.
idea. Love those days. They're not very common for me. But that's executive function. And other times, we might be more inclined to be in default mode, which is that inner, more critical, kind of foggy place that's about self. What am I doing wrong? We're very melancholic. And I think if we're not aware of these variations, I mean, for me, in my experience, I'm like, am I just freaking losing it? Like one day I've got all this stuff, and the next day I'm like, oh God, I'm a mess. And it can sometimes be like that. And whilst it's important to be aware of health, work-life balance, knowing that, it's day whatever, that makes sense. I'm going to sit down and have a cup of tea, because I'm English. It makes it a lot easier to not blame yourself. We act like we're not biological beings, but so much of our psychology is actually biology,
The lady, Jenny, who does my social media, she came down and we did a social media content day that we got, and she was talking to me about how she runs her schedules and business in alignment with her whole cycle.
Yeah.
And she knows it well enough to know when she schedules her production of creativity time and energy time. And, it's not just about, I like working out in the morning. Okay. For me, and this is what I had that was hard, is I could do things, but it would change. So I would go, okay, I'm gonna wake up, and every day this month I'm gonna wake up at 6 and I'm gonna go work out. I can do that for certain periods, and I think this is what you're talking about, is when you're in these zones within the cycle, it's like line them up. And I think to a degree, when women are going through IVF and things like that, people become more aware. But I generally don't think that there's, especially women my age. Now, granted, I'm in menopause, but that's a whole other side that we've talked about. But again, the younger generation, who I consider you part of, it's yes. I think if they were able to bring in and say, okay, what's going on with me? And then aligning this, and just like anything else, going and being able to bring that to your team and go, listen, you want the best out of me? This is when my schedule, this is how I know me. Because at the end of the day, and this is, I'm taking a sideways and I'll come back to this, but in business, there's always margin, efficiency and best output, right? Well, why not get them when they're at their peak? Why not get them when, why not use women when we've got everything? I mean, we do that with guys all the time. So why not invite that? I know that sounds radical, but it's really not. It's just going, that makes sense. Why spend 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours doing something that could take you 30 minutes on a day or, 2 day time frame? So I like that you brought that up. So continue on about, as a whole, understanding that whole, because I know there's other parts to this cycle.
Absolutely. I think you've just said so much, and I really just want to pinpoint how you said that seems radical, because when we really think about it, is it? It's not. I mean, we need to consider whether it's business, relationships, creativity, whatever it is, output's dependent on input. What are we working with today? What am I working with in this body as a woman today? Because that dictates, and it should, because we are beings, where I'm going to best use the energy I have today. And for example, I write, I know at certain times in the month, I'm far more empathetic. Ovulation time, estrogen's high, I'm watching commercials, crying. Oh, great. I'm going to write a great scene now. 2 weeks later, I want to burn the world down. Probably not great, to be seeing people's kids. safety hazard. You know what I mean? Like, so
Step
is it
away from the
radical, or is it
children.
just, yeah, is it just like a systemic oversight that we don't consider half of our population's biological needs?
It's like sports. I mean, I'm a huge sports nut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who's showing up today? Where's everybody's physical health at? What is their biology? Like, where are they? How are they showing up? And you know, what do we need to move? Who needs to play this part? And how many? You know, are they going to sit them and regulate their hours? You know, in the playoff season. You know, I mean, we in baseball, you're always managing your team. Running backs, they do that all the time. They know that's limited time. So why are we not doing that? And not why, because I don't think it's why we're not doing that. We all know kind of why.
Yeah,
We just,
yeah.
you know, but let's stop. And you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I think it's interesting that you pointed back to me. I said radical, and you're like, huh? Is it?
No. It's sensical, but it's not happening, so it feels unusual. But just to weigh in terms of we talking about utilizing energy and what's best in terms of how we show up, something I think really important just to pass out here is that during a window in the luteal phase, women are much, much more physiologically vulnerable to stress.
You said a phase. I didn't hear the phase.
Luteal.
Okay, and explain what that is, because I don't know that.
So it's the latter half of the cycle. So we have follicular, the build up to ovulation, hormones rise. Ovulation, they're at their peak. If you're ovulating and you're fertile, you release an egg. From that point onwards, it's a bit of a downslide.
Yeah.
And that's for many people, and I think we've all felt that fatigue, brain fog, aches, name it, you know, nausea, bloating. That's this downslide of hormones. But in that window, biologically, we are under physical stress. And I mention this, Christine, because when we think about women's health, we think about mental health. If you experience unpleasant, or I will go as far as saying trauma in this window, your outcome for recovery is much lower than if you'd experienced it then, because you don't have the physical reserves
To have a better output.
Yeah. Exactly. And also for your nervous system to be regulated. Now, I know you and I have talked about this idea of kind of trauma happening in the absence of a sympathetic witness. If your brain's going blah, 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 blah in this time anyway, how does one respond if that's mirrored back? You have an argument with a partner, or, you know, you get stood up, or whatever it might be. You know, you have a bad performance review at work. That's going to feel so much worse. And your memory is going to remember it as so much worse just because of your biology. So if you're sitting there going, oh, this is terrible, you know, look at your calendar and go, oh, it's day 27. Maybe I don't need to leave the country, you know, or, you know, get a divorce. Maybe you do. I don't know. But, you know, you can kind of reconcile and go, sleep on this a few days, girl, and see how you feel in your body.
What I really like about our conversation is that this is our bodies. It's not our choice. And
Yeah, exactly.
I think for me, a lot of it has been, I must be choosing to be crazy, or I must be choosing to be off center. And it's just the flow. Now that we know this, we can kind of go, hey guys, these are warnings. Just, you know, I'm on day 28, we're going to, you know. But I think for me, and a part of it was some of the abuse that I had when I was younger, everything was my fault. But a lot of it, like you say, like we're doing now, is I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. So.
Exactly.
All right. Number 2.
So this leads us really well into number 2. So I don't know if you've ever had this, Christine, but I spent a lot of my kind of growing up and the early part of my career talking to people, and people acting like it's a mystery why women suffer more. Like, oh, why women are more delicate, or, you know, like, you know, women seem to have more illnesses. People looking around like, oh, we don't know why. I mean, when I worked in general practice, you know, talking to colleagues and kind of going, oh, I don't really know, just women, you know, women. Is that way in which it is said, oh, it's women. Acting like it's a mystery. Yeah, oh, you know, they have their ways. You know,
Joe is over there just smiling. He's got his hand over his mouth, but he's giggling. Joe,
They know.
you've heard that, right, Joe?
know.
We're a lot.
Yeah, of course.
It comes with a hand action. Women. It's that kind of women. It's not a mystery. It's biology. It's not a mystery. And that is something I wish I'd known. It's science. It's not a question. Like we've just talked about, we have this 28 variation. Bad shit goes down at the wrong time. It's going to suck. It's going to have lasting consequences.
It's really interesting that women and how much we go, well, we just need to knock it off. We need to quit being batshit crazy. We need to quit doing this.
No.
We need to quit. I mean, it's funny because I'm not saying that everything that I've ever done was right on keel, but had I known, hey, this is what's going on with me, it's a lot easier for me to take responsibility for it.
Uh-huh.
And a guy, and I would offer this, a guy, if you've got a woman going through something or whatever, or she's being a woman, you know, she's a little much or whatever it is, find out. And if she doesn't know or doesn't want to take responsibility, that's a whole different thing than showing up and being empathetic and going, oh, okay, and now I know. She's not crazy. She's just going like it's her body. It's what's going on. Because I do think that there is this part where, and I have to be honest, I've done this a couple times, maybe more than a few, where I've used the crazy moments. Like I've just like for not taking responsibility on shit I should have. But I say that to say I've also had times where I was just going through stuff, like biologically going through stuff. And so I think it's our responsibility, like you said, it's biology. Okay, what's biology? What's going? And then what is this other part that I need to clean up my side of the street on? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I will add a few things to that. I think one, what do we mean when we say crazy?
Yeah.
What do we mean? Because in my experience, particularly if it's being used by someone who, I'm going to say it, I've only ever heard men say this about women. And that's just my experience. Or women saying it about herself because it's been mirrored to her. What they mean is she's having a response. She's having a response. Often it's an inconvenient response that perhaps they don't want to hear, don't have time for, whatever, or they don't want to show up and support because they don't have it in them. Fine. But when you said like what's biology and what's me needing to clean up my side of the street, I would perhaps suggest that they can be the same thing. So for example, this is just a small thing, but I used to live with someone. When he used to come into a room, I'd startle. That's my nervous system. And he'd go, oh, babe, we live together. What you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. My body's doing it and I need to check it out because it's making you feel like you're a burglar in your own home. I get that's not cool. But I use that as an example of it's biology. I still need to look at it because it's affecting my behavior. Yeah. It's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. And I think that's really important because they're not necessarily different. If I know on day 21, I'm going to be causing an argument about whatever it might be, then I need to kind of go, all right, girl, you've got this in you today. What are you going to do with it? And you need that to be matched with understanding and support because it's my responsibility. It's not my fault. It's my street, but I don't own the world, the building. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I like the way that you put it because I like the fact that we said this is a response. Okay. And what am I going to do about understanding that response, communicating it to whoever's in my life, your partner, your spouse, your children, your coworkers, whatever. And how do I communicate that? Now, and we can go on for days about how hard that is to communicate it to coworkers or whatever. But it is for me to understand, and it's also for me not to judge.
Yeah.
Because when you brought up fault, that is a thing that I receive sometimes I give it to myself, but then I also receive it when we talked about we just kind of said, well, women, it is kind of it's their fault. Like we have this choice. We have this choice what to do with the response and how we wish to acknowledge, hey, this is likely the time that I'm going to have some responses like this. So do I not schedule orals, which are like high pressure, intense negotiations and presentations? Like, do I communicate? Like, maybe I shouldn't be the one standing up and speaking, or maybe I should. But let's just, again, I'm not saying we have to go into every boardroom and do that, but I'm saying if I'm not willing to acknowledge it to myself and take responsibility for, hey, there's this response that I'm going to have, this biological and psychological response in me. How do I meet that? How does that play out in the situation in the best way it can?
Yeah. And I think that's really, really important. And I think, one, how amazing would it be if we didn't have to go into every boardroom because it was just, in the zeitgeist. But I would also mention here that I think whilst it's important we take responsibility and we try and keep our communication the way we are showing up as anti-inflammatory as we possibly can and as open as we possibly can, I want to acknowledge here the possibility of that being weaponized. Because I know for me, if someone, how much times, oh, were you on your period? Oh, where you at?
God.
And I can't not say that in my conscience because it's kind of this, it reminds me of kind of witch trials, right? We're going around saying, I'm a woman, I've got this thing. And then they're going, you're a woman and you've got this thing.
Or it's not even that. It's even a little bit harsher and subtle. It's like she can't be trusted at this level.
Yes.
She can't be trusted because the thing that's crazy, and I just want you to tell me what you think about this, is that men go through shit all the time. And now we're in this an age of emotional intelligence, right? We've been doing that shit for a while. And yet it's one of these things where they can show up and go, oh, there's emotions. But we show up and it's like, oh, she's unpredictable. There's this clip and I've got it and I don't know. I've got it somewhere. It's on Instagram and it's literally, I think it's the Phil Donahue. I don't know if it's Phil Donahue. It was back in the day. That's our age. And actually, I think it was before Phil Donahue. And this guy was talking about there couldn't ever be a woman president because of the period. And, she's deficient. Yeah, it was really, and granted, we're way past that. Or are we? Are we?
I raise an eyebrow for another episode.
Yeah, because it's, she's, during this time she's unstable. It's like, and the lady comes back and says to him, so can you tell if I'm on my period or not right now? And it's like that because, again, you talk about it being weaponized. And I think that that's something really real that we have to acknowledge and work to change. So if you're an ally, I hate that word ally. If you're standing up for us and going toe to toe with women, think about that. Think about get with them and go, how do I make it so we don't weaponize your honesty, and communicate that because we still need that.
I think you're so right. And you've just hit on a couple of things that have made me think that one, it will tell you something as a woman if you don't feel comfortable to express where you are biologically for fear of being gaslighted. You're in the wrong place. You're not. You're exactly where you should be, but you're around people that are not good.
That are not good.
And that information. And perhaps use that as a way to measure our company and the quality of it.
Your event doesn't just need a host, it needs a ringmaster of energy. Christine Spratley reads the room and keeps the momentum rolling like a damn orchestra conductor. With insight, humor, and a splash of mischief, she'll make sure your event isn't just organized, it's electric. After Christine takes the stage, your audience will be fully present, fired up, and not scrolling on their phones. Book her now at christinespratley.com.
I was literally talking with or coaching somebody yesterday, and we were talking about, I think for me anyway, I've had to realize when I'm not safe. It gives me information. And part of what we're talking about today is kind of understanding our bodies, but also understanding, and we're talking about trauma in the corporate world, and the environment that we receive when we give out and we go, hey, listen, I'm not like this is not good. I need some time or whatever, and the response is back, and we were just talking about how that response is taken, and taking that in and taking that information, going, is this acceptable for me? To either be, and again, we talk about this being, it's not radical to ask, or it's not radical to communicate. It can be weaponized. And then what do I do with that? And again, this is for another segment, but do I find somewhere else that is safer, that doesn't weaponize it? Do I stand, when do you fight, when do you not fight? But again, it's one of those things where I think it's information.
It's information, exactly. And I think, as a last point before it leads to my next one, because it will line up with what we've just talked about, is the most frustrating thing I think I've learned as a woman in this phase specifically is that the more you are treated like you're crazy, biologically, the more likely you are to become it, right? So stress in women, we release more inflammatory proteins than men do. So in our male counterparts, we release less inflammatory proteins than women following stress. The specific one we release, which is related to my PhD, changes our blood-brain barrier and lets in more toxins and increases our risk of neurological disorder. How mad is that?
That is crazy.
Literally,
I know we're using crazy, but seriously, that is unfair. That pisses me off.
It feels like we're stitched up, right?
And it's interesting because it's kind of like you've heard what you hear, what you talk, the stories you tell yourself, and the stories you become. And if we're doing that, if I understand this kind of right, and I'm going to dumb this down for me, but if we're doing that and we're telling ourselves, and hey, that you're crazy, hey, this is like wrong, something's wrong with you, the more you become that. But it's biologically that reason because we produce that more, right?
We produce stress in the body, which alters the nervous system, which alters the brain in a very methodical manner. And I think what it comes down to is the mistrust of the self. And if you don't trust yourself, you can't trust anything around you. Thus, you end up behaving, and I use this with air quotes, crazily, right? You make choices that you wouldn't ordinarily make. And so that brings us nicely to number 3.
Okay.
Which is, just because it's common for women to suffer does not mean it's normal, and it does not mean it's acceptable. Just, we've all heard it, women's pains, women's this, women's problems. What does that mean? It means a reduced quality of life. When did that become acceptable or normal? Not in my book. I didn't realize it was a choice not to feel like crap until I was about 26. And it's mad.
We were talking about this is when I have my Mirena put in and taken out, it affects me like I'm off, like I'm done.
Yeah.
And I bleed. And and now they have the laughing gas and now they have stuff. But it's like and this is just a procedure, not just your regular monthly time and the pain that goes on with that. Go ahead.
But I love that you just said, now they have laughing gas, because that's been here since the 80s. That's not new, but it's not been used in gynecology because, we're going to say it, cost. And also because women's pain is treated differently to men's pain. There are tons of studies on this. A woman shows up to an A&E department or an emergency department complaining of the same thing as a male counterpart in a study, she gets less painkillers, she has to wait longer, and she's more likely to be discharged without appropriate investigations than a man. True. If it's a black woman, even longer, even worse outcomes. Shocking. But no, there's tons of studies on this.
And that, I'm just going to, okay, so we hear women can't handle pain and we can't handle tolerance and we're not strong. Well, shouldn't we be getting more faster sooner?
Well, but this is the thing. How mad is that? Because every single person that walks this planet is here because of a woman's labor. Every single person. And yet women can't handle pain. Figure that for me.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's insane. And I like the fact, though, that we're calling it, this is not normal. Like, why?
No.
When does this?
It's common, but it's not normal.
And it shouldn't be normal for anyone. This and that's why I sometimes I feel like not too many men that I know anymore think this way, just because I don't have tolerance for them. Is they go, well, you're it's all focused on women, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is equal. Like come on, guys, like no, like stop it. We just like, if it's not good for you, it's not good for us. And we just want to raise up to the standard of that this is not normal. This is not acceptable. I remember we were talking, a mutual friend of ours was talking about, and we've had this conversation multiple times, about going to the doctor. And I've got some major back stuff going on. And I've had some stuff in my mouth going on and very painful and just being dismissed, and how it's so when we go in and we express our displeasure about their attentiveness or their response to our pain, it's met with indignance and anger sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's and we've actually talked about this because we've had friends that we practice before going in. Okay, this is the person I'm meeting. This is how I can talk to them. This is how I can talk to them about what they're doing, and all of that. And it's just, again, it goes to the normalization of pain and how we have to prepare. And Joe, I'm gonna bring you in here. But when you go in and you got something wrong with you, do you? And I'm not, again, I don't care what your answer is. Do you sit there and go, God, I wonder if are they taking me serious? Are they? I mean, like,
do they believe me?
Yeah. Do you go, are they going to believe me?
Never crosses my mind. Well, also, I'm from the Midwest and I don't go to the doctor.
But it never crosses your mind. There's never a, and that's what I think is really interesting is that it's so normalized for us to go, we know, and again, it's our body going, something's up, we got to prepare for this. We're worried about this. It's our body going, we're going into a situation that is conflict.
Yeah.
And
it's like the go-to thing for women is prove it. If we're stating a claim, we have to turn up with a fucking file of facts full of evidence, as opposed to our word meaning anything.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw this on the head here, just to add a little bit of something different to the dialogue, because as a clinician, I've been sat in that seat and have women come in with tons of pain, discomfort, mood issues, tons of stuff. And now I've been both, right? I've had the privilege and the displeasure of being both with those people. And as the clinician, it got to a point where I was like, I can't do anything about this, because the reason this woman is sitting here is psychosocial. It's because the infrastructure of the world. If I hand her a pill, I am insulting her in some ways, because there's no pill on the planet that can fix the fact that she's treated like a second-class citizen at best, and a slave person at worst, here to absorb everyone else's discomfort and to fix everybody else's problems. And like, there's nothing that one can do to solve that, because it's not medical. It's causing biological problems, but it's not medical. And that is a really disheartening place to be. So when the next woman come in and the next woman come in, eventually I'm showing up as a burnt out person that can't hear anymore. And it looks like boredom. And I become the exact thing that that woman does not need. And it's disparaging for everyone because the problems we face, they are medical, they become medical, but they often start as social. And that's the ongoing problem. And that's problematic.
Yeah. That feeds on itself. It's like this circular dysfunction.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because I never thought about it from that perspective of, hey, what, I guess from their perspective going, I mean, the ones that do want to show up and that one, if they're treated or educated, because a lot of times they're not educated on women's health the way that they should, that we think they should be. But if they don't have that, what is that stirring up in them about, their interaction? That's on them. How they show up is on them. And that I've got to go in and advocate for myself. And again, knowing these things and advocating. And, whether we like it or not, I want to. I used to kind of be angry about having to go in and defend. But actually, it's one of those things, how can I help you help me? I mean, I learned that in Negotiation 101. And when I was just starting out in business a long, long time ago, how can I help you help me?
Yeah.
And by that is by knowing me, by being articulate, by being, flexing and going, this is how I need to ebb and flow with the type of, I remember going in one time, and I know we were talking about the cycles and stuff like that, but I remember going in one time and I immediately was pretty, hey, this is not acceptable. And this doctor just was like, boom, got real uppity with me. And so I had to diffuse the situation. It's all in like a 30-minute deal. It's like, if you're a mom or a woman, you read the situation, go, okay, I need to calm down my voice so he can get situated and get comfortable. And then I rephrased my questions in a way where he was the hero and he could educate me. I know, but I was like, I was okay with that because I wanted the information, and he was just. But again, that was his shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you're expending your energy and time to manage someone. Like you're mothering your doctor.
You so are, but it sucks. But it was like, because I needed information. I wasn't going to go back to him, but I needed more information so I could take it to the next doctor. And I remember, I think coming to you guys afterwards going, fine, I'm so tired of this shit. I'm tired. But again, it's my responsibility. Just like we talked about earlier about what situations were put in, what environments were put in, give us information. That information that I received that day, yes, I received some medical information. I received an information that I won't go back to them.
Yeah. Exactly. Putting it in your pantry and using it to inform yourself and your world better. And that's a great place and a really helpful place to be for you,
Okay. We're on 4?
Well, on 4. So this one I really like, and as the theme seems to go, it's trickled down. So expressing, being loud, talking, singing, expressing loudly actually activates the vagus nerve, which induces the parasympathetic nervous system and relaxes the body. And I bring this up because when I learned this, I thought, one, that explains why I love singing in the shower in my car so much. And I will do so relentlessly for the rest of my life. But 2, to flip it on its head, every single time you hold something in, so every time you've been quiet and absorbed aggression at home, work, wherever, you've denied your body the potential for release. And when I think about how many times I've done that and how many times I haven't allowed my system to settle and respond because I've sat on what I wanted to say, I know I can never do it again. I can absolutely never do it again. So I bid you, listener, give yourself the ability for your body to do its thing and express. And don't be quiet for someone else's comfort, for politeness or to be palatable. Because biologically, once again, you're increasing the risk of you going mad.
Of you going mad. But also, this is in Jennifer Cox's book, and I'll find it here in a second. And I used it in a presentation that I had in a speech that I gave about what holding in, when we hold in the emotion or the what we want to get out. It and again, I'll find it, but it's one of those things where I think it is you are 50% more likely to die early because it's not the release. Like we're not talking like getting sick. We're talking die early. And I'll look it up while we're talking, but so I get it right. But I was just amazed that by not giving voice.
Yeah, and it's giving voice. And what I think really is interesting with this is that the tissue that lines our throats also lines our cervix. So
Really?
there's a whole through of cellular networks. It's the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve innervates the cervix and innervates the part of the throat. So this is why they used to sing women through childbirth. And when women were banned from speaking in places of worship, how muted and how much more stressful was their lives based on that, you know?
I just, again, if you haven't, the book that we're talking about that is Women Are Mad by Dr. Jennifer Cox, or
Women Are Angry.
Women Are Angry, not mad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
By Jennifer Cox. And she's a psychiatrist and she's wonderful. And her cohort in crime, I love her, Salima Saxon, amazing. But, okay. 70% higher risk in all women of cancer and 100% increase in early death for women who suppress emotions. Okay. 70% higher risk in all women for cancer and 100%. Everybody, this happens to all the women who suppress our emotions, which is what we're kind of talking about in the sense of giving voice. Because typically, I don't want to speak. I don't want to go out and let it out because I've got the emotions, and part of that giving voice is letting that emotion out and saying what's going on. And am I off on that?
I think you're dead on. It's just I think sometimes, like to me, I don't always have the words for how I feel. Sometimes there's a numbing out or a disconnect. Like I know there's something that's moving through, and it doesn't have to be targeted at someone specific, but just making actual noise, singing, humming, moving that through. Biologically, it eases it for you in the nervous system. So I think there's an element of not suppressing emotions in the moment, but also generally lifting up your voice. If you lift it up as a singular, you're lifting it up in a sense for the community in which you are, because someone that shows up with a regulated nervous system, other people benefit from that. When women benefit from that, being around people who are attuned and settled into their parasympathetic system. So when I think about voice, that's really how I'm thinking about it. Does that follow?
It does. It does, because one of the things that I again in Jennifer's book was about how you work through your anger and things like that, and just putting into practice. So I've started to put into practice voice a lot in non-areas and outside of situations of stress and things like that. It's like I've incorporated that as part of my exercise into my day.
Yes, same.
And my body is much more regulated and calmer, just in that. And so by giving voice, and if I'm hearing you correctly, there is the times where we don't give voice because there's an emotion and we don't know how to do it. But if we plant it, okay, I'm going to sing on my way to work. I'm going to do these things. It's almost like taking a healthy vitamin you
It
know?
is. Maybe that should be taking vitamins, drink your water, and sing on your way to work. And you're
Sing on your
halfway,
way to
halfway
work.
there.
And it's funny because I literally do that. I literally do that.
Mhm.
I do a couple things, but one of them is I sing a lot, and I put my hand out the window and I go like this with the wind,
Yeah.
as I'm cruising down 440, yelling at the car in front of me for going too slow. But I think the other thing that I really like about this and what I hear you is this idea that to come out of myself, to come out.
Yes, let her out.
And I'm just going to say this. My experience, this is one of my experience. I'm not going to talk about how I felt. My experience has been, I had someone very close to me tell me that I was like, you know, the wacky thing that blows up in front of the car dealership like this, and very close to me tell me that, and because it was too much, it was too loud, it was too, and I didn't, you know, we've all been in the rooms, especially rooms with a lot of women, and the volume goes up. And I can handle that for a while. Like I can, and I can handle that people don't, you know, but the beauty of that, it's almost like a crescendo of all this crazy energy. And
Beautiful.
that doesn't need to be contained. And it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's like a little kid. Have you ever watched little kids that just, especially little, again, some boys are like this too, but where they're just running around having fun,
Yes,
doing silly
yes.
stuff. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you don't try to contain them, you know?
No, exactly. And I can't remember if you said it, but there's a quote and it's something like, kids run because they have run in them. Imagine
Yeah.
if we just did stuff like we've got singing in us or we've got, you know, dancing in us and we just did. Because we have to live in this false civility of being grown-ups. And what that means is being fucking miserable, in my experience. And I just find it exhausting and boring, right?
It really is. It's really is, and it's funny because we all, just so you know, my scroll on my Instagram and my TikTok are like dog videos, people getting booed, scared, like you know, scared, and then kids doing crazy little kid stuff because it's like you know, again, there's not malice in there for the most part, and you know, there's just this joy of living. And there's the one I'll send you later today. But Joe, I don't know if I've showed you this, but this, I think it's a mom. It might be the dad. Asked this little girl. She says, "Are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem?" And she turns and she looks and she goes, "I'm going to be the whole problem."
Yes,
And she's like 3, and I'm like, exactly. I mean, that is, you
I want
know,
to be her.
exactly. And that's exactly what, and I want, I mean, yeah, let's go, let it out.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Exactly.
5.
And that brings us to 5.
Drum roll.
Yes, it's less factual, it's more feeling and observation.
I can't believe we're going to be into feeling.
Can you believe it? I know it's taken only an hour. Women, our bodies are built for resilience. We've got a 28-day cycle. We can potentially birth life. We are not delicate. We've got our own rhythms. We've got our own patterns. But the observation is that we're living in a society that demands that we balance on the edge of a coin. Where one side is that we're so delicate that we can't deal with anything. We're mad. We can't make decisions. We can't be trusted. And the other side demands that we have to do it all. If we want it all, we have to do it all. We have to do all the labor on which they will sit. And it's an impossible task. And it feels like the coin spins and spins and spins and it never lands because neither is true. We were never the coin to begin with. We're the currency, the energy, the potential. And we need to move through life in the absence of these demands and listen to the wisdom of the body because she does know. Like that's what we've come back to. This whole talk is that she knows.
The body knows.
All of the external does not believe or doesn't listen or doesn't care to show up. And I find that it's difficult, you know,
Mhm.
We're raised to disconnect from her because it's much easier if we live in doubt and we are disparaged. We don't question the why. So whenever the coin, we are the currency.
Things I love about that. One, the fact that we are the currency is just true.
Mhm.
True. I mean, I don't, I've never met a man that's healthy that doesn't go, yeah,
Mm,
I've had a strong mom, or I've had a strong sister,
mm.
or my wife carries this load, and it's not about being more, no, but
No.
it's the currency. It's like we bring to the table. We aren't just the table. Like we are
Yeah.
everything around that. And
Mhm.
it's not more or less, it's just what it is. And I think that's beautiful. And the other part about that is twofold. One, you said the statement that the body knows what the outer side, the external, refuses to kind of acknowledge and admit or doesn't believe. And I can't always change the external, but I can change me being part of that external narrative.
Mhm.
Um, my and I'm going to tell on myself. I had a doctor's appointment yesterday to go into. I just started HRT, or hormone replacement
Mhm.
therapy, and so we were going back in, and my doctor started asking me questions that I didn't know, and they're all
Mm.
about, well, how do you feel at this time of the day? Well, what do you tell me more about this symptom?
Mm.
Da-da-da-da-da. And she basically said, no, you've got to pay attention to your body, girl,
Mm.
so you can come and talk to me and tell me and listen. And so it's like, other than, because I pay attention to my body in meditation, like body
Yeah.
scan, but it's like, or when it's pounding and it's hurting really bad. But what
Mhm.
about the 3 weeks or the month and a half that I didn't say anything about my back? Like, when did it start?
Mhm.
And so it's so
Yeah.
funny that our body knows. And some of the biggest disrespect is done by me, by not listening,
Mm.
by not taking the time. And
Mm.
I'm not saying that I grew up going, oh, I should disrespect. No, it's society helps me disrespect it. I'm taught not to listen to it.
Mhm.
It's really hard to convey that. I mean, all of this. But
Yeah.
once you know better, you do better.
Exactly. Exactly. I used to trip up over this statement, like as a yoga teacher. I mean, I heard it, I even preached it, but I went, nah, I'm not sure about that. Like, and it's the body is the safest place to be. And my very black and white neurodiverse brain went, well, yeah, we can't be anywhere else. And the other side of me went, oh, raised an eyebrow, like, girl, you're talking shit because you don't live in your body for a minute. You live in your head, right? And it's only like as I get older that I realize that it's true, but the longer you're out of your body, the harder it is to get in because the more disrespect, the more, I'm going to say abuse, the more trauma, the more difficulty it's absorbed that you might not even necessarily fully hold because you don't let yourself dip in,
Mm-hmm.
like wading into a pool. Does that follow?
Oh, it does. It does.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, and it's not even a wall. It's not there. Like, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this? I can get in here. I mean, and we talked about this. And this is a segue because we're going to do another We're going to have you on again. And we're going to talk about sex.
Oh yeah, let's talk about
And
sex,
just
baby.
what that is about when you get into your body. And
Yeah.
how that, you're just sitting here. I'm sitting here going, I'm 54. What the hell? What the hell? I need to get it into my body a hell of a lot sooner. But I think it's interesting that these things, and what I wanted to do in just a second is read just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But
Mhm.
if we know this sooner rather than later, the sooner we can go, okay, what is this? What does this mean to me? How do I
Mhm.
take this information? And how does it show up in my life? How do I choose to have it show up in my life? Or do I not choose? Like, these are choices.
Yeah, I think
And
that's it.
I think that is what I want my listeners to take away, you guys to take away. If you're a guy, talk to your auntie, talk to your mom, just give this space. I mean, this is the one thing I do know is that we are all temples, and men included, just different temples, different furniture. Okay. So, but in order for me to treat me with the respect I deserve, I need to know.
Yeah.
And now I know things, and now I can explore. And this hopefully triggers 5 or 6 questions for someone else to go, what are the things that I don't know about my physical biology that affect everything that I do?
Yeah, exactly. It's like driving a car, but never having looked under the hood. You only look under the hood when there's a problem. But if you regularly maintain and you know what's going on, you get more miles and you get a smoother journey as best as you can do on the roads on which you're driving, and that's different for everyone. And I will add here, obviously, I've talked on female biology. That's my area. I recognize that that's different. There are people that don't necessarily have the same biology that identify as women. And I'm including everybody in this because we all suffer the societal consequences of what it means to be a woman. And in no way do I disparage that. I want to be clear as a scientist. Obviously, there are certain things in my areas of interest, but I do not mean that women who are of the female sex are only of the female sex. I said that very clumsily. Can you clean that up a little bit, Joe?
Yeah, we're gonna give Joe.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and fix transphobia stuff real quick.
Joe, I'm sure there's enough DEI shit around here that you can just pull from that, right? Yeah.
No problem. I fixed it.
This is why I love this podcast. I so love it. You did not say it clumsily. You do it. Good. This is the thing. We just do it. It's not clumsily. It's not it just does. Like, you do it. Your intent is there, and our intent is to say it applies. We hear you, and it applies, and you're part of this conversation too. And so, if it helps you, put it in your pantry. Put it in your pantry, and use it. Have those conversations. Never stop asking questions. Okay, so go over the 5 things. Just boom, 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 boom.
Yes, 5 things. Boom, 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 boom. I want you in my pantry. 1. The menstrual cycle is not just about the reproduction, sex, or gynae. The cycle is the whole month. 2, why women suffer more pain, more autoimmune, or overall suffer more in general is not a mystery. We know why. It's science. 3, just because it's common for women to suffer does not mean it's normal, and it does not mean it's acceptable. 4, being loud, expressing is really good for you. Singing, talking loudly activates the parasympathetic nervous system via the vagus nerve. And 5, we are built for resilience.
I'm so grateful that you came on and we decided to do this. We've been talking about this for a while, and it really feels good to have you on. And I welcome all the people over on the pond side to listen, and welcome you to the podcast. And just to all my listeners again, we're going to have Ria on again, and like I said, we're going to talk about sex and the body, and it's going to be good. It's going to be real good. So until then,
so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And Joe, thanks for putting up with our dogs and everything. And to everyone out there, have an amazing time, amazing day. And tubs, ladies.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.